Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of Valpo Athletics Weekly, presented by our friends at Lakeshore Bone and Joint Institute. Brandon Vickery with you. Glad to be joined by the head coach of the Valpo baseball program, Brian Schmack. And it's a good time to talk Beacon baseball coming off a big win over Washington to close out the weekend series on the road against a Big Ten opponent. Significant victory for the program. And first two games didn't go so well. Kind of what was the message after Friday, and how were you able to bounce back with such a big win on Saturday?
Yeah, you said it right. The first two games didn't go well. We struck out 34 times in those two games, and I think we were very passive and we were very in between, in between the fastball and the breaking ball, which is never a great spot to live. So we just talked about being aggressive to the fastball early in that situation against them specifically, right? And I thought we did a good job, right? Gavin, first pitch of the game, singles on a fastball, and you're like, okay, hey, and Plu, I think, had a first pitch home run on a fastball to get the 2 runs early, and it was like, okay, good stuff. And it's just about being a little bit more aggressive and taking it to them instead of it being taken to you. So we just tried to flip the mentality more than anything, and it worked out, I guess.
You pitched it well throughout the weekend. Let's talk about Nick Baffa and the way he pitched on Saturday. What stood out to you that led to the successful outing against a quality opponent?
Yeah, he had a lot of confidence going into that, and I think he's just growing as a pitcher again. And sometimes new guys and young guys have a tendency to think about mechanics and where they are in space and all these things that somewhat don't matter as just competing and executing, right? So I think the development for him has been to learn about that, and I think he goes against an opponent like this, and he just learns to execute and trust his pitches. And he was great. He got himself into some jams, but he got himself out of those jams as well too. So he's just done a good job of attacking the strike zone, and he's unfortunately had to pitch on a lot of windy days that are blowing out. So he knows that and he accepts that challenge. He actually starts to really relish in it, and he wants to be better than that. So there's no excuses. So he's just learned to attack hitters and trust his stuff.
One guy who I think's opened some eyes from an offensive standpoint as a freshman is Cal Shembra. Came in, had some big games right away, and has been a strong offensive performer for you. What was the process like of recruiting him and bringing him here, and what stood out to you about him?
Yeah, he's a very talented player, right? And I think anytime you get those guys, and he's down from Indy and competitive, travel program and high school program as well too. So, trying to get him to come up north, obviously, even though it is 3 hours, is sometimes a challenge for guys. But he's been good. He plays hard. He's very competitive, right? So I think that is what gets him through a lot of struggles, right? Because everybody's going to struggle, and he's probably struggling a little bit now. He can't get off to a hot start, but like it's normal. You're going to have ups and downs, and I think he's pressing a little bit, right? So he had a great game Thursday at Washington, but he's just a competitor, and he just wants to play, and he just wants to play baseball, and it doesn't matter what position, doesn't matter where in the lineup. He just wants to hit and somewhat prove people wrong. So he's been a good addition, and just I like the way he plays.
And you mentioned it doesn't matter what position. Another guy like that is Javin Gauthier. He's among your better players from an offensive statistical standpoint as well, but defensively he's played all over the diamond. How beneficial is it to have guys like that can play multiple positions?
Well, it's huge because when you guys get hurt, you have options, right? And Cole Lockwood going down, and it obviously does. We do lose some of those options, but when Jav can come in from the outfield to the infield, which usually doesn't happen, you're not bringing your center fielders and your right fielders into play, middle infield especially. So Javin's athletic enough to do that, and I think he actually likes infield more, is my guess. Most guys do, but just to be able to have him and the flexibility that he provides has been great. And he's got off to a great start hitting. He's still a young kid, right? He's a redshirt freshman. He's only got maybe 100 at bats and under his belt, so. He's going to learn. He's going to have, things that he struggles with, and more so it's going to be mentally, and he's got to learn how to get through those. And, that's part of his process, and we'll try to help him obviously through that.
You mentioned Cole Lockwood. Wanted to ask you about his brother Connor. What's it mean to have a fifth-year guy like that in the program? What's he mean to Valpo baseball, and how important is it to send him out on a high note the rest of the way this season?
Yeah, he's been incredible, and I was kind of lauding on him the other day in a meeting, and just how good he is and how special he is. And I think you fully don't realize that until he's gone, right? And just what he provided, the stability, I think sometimes you get lazy because you're like, oh, Connor's going, it's a CG, right? And it's like, well, it's not fair to the kid, but it's kind of what he provides, right? He kind of even asked into he asked into the game, Saturday versus Washington. Hey, if you need a few outs, right, I can give it to you. And it's like, come on, dude, right? He just went 100 pitches the day before, but that's just who he is. And those guys seemingly are getting more rare because of just the way athletics is going. But he just loves to play. He just wants to compete, and those guys are invaluable because they start to change what other people think and how they approach their work as well, which is awesome.
Last thing, I feel like sometimes a big win like the one you had on Saturday can be times a turning point for a team. What has to happen for you to build on that and to have some success the rest of the way as you step back into conference play?
Yeah, I agree. I hope it is a turning point for us because I think you guys just have to believe sometimes. You can tell them they're good. You can tell them we're right with everybody else. You can tell them we're in the games, but sometimes you actually have to experience it, right? Us telling you doesn't always work. So when you can beat a team like that and in a good way, right? 4-2 game. It was a close game. It was a good game. It wasn't like they kicked the ball around and it was just, it was one of those days. No, we beat them, right? And guys need to see that you can play with anybody. So you hope that, like, for the guys that are kind of on the fence whether or not we are good or we can play, you usually hope that is a turning point for a lot of those guys. So I'd like to look back and say, yeah, that was a great win for us, and that changed the season.
There he is, the head coach of the Valpo baseball program, Brian Schmack, at Western Michigan on Tuesday. But finally, some more home games coming up. They've only played three all season, and they will have a fourth start on Friday, beginning a three-game series against Bradley. Hope to see you out at Emory G. Bauer Field. We'll talk to you again next time on Valpo Athletics Weekly, presented by Lakeshore Bone and Joint Institute.